Hello, and welcome to the No Sleep Theater. Tonight we bring to you a double feature of terrifying tales. First up, we revisit the story we first narrated on this channel, along with an update. A police officer reports on his investigations into mysterious disappearances and people keep disappearing from elevators. If you enjoyed tonight's video, don't forget to press the like and subscribe. And while you're at it, press the bell icon to get alerted whenever we upload a new video. People keep disappearing from elevators by I Like Beef 69.
Hi, this is Detective Dave Cox with the public service announcement from the NYPD. As well as wanting to wish you all happy festivities this fine August, I'm here to remind you to avoid using elevators unless absolutely necessary. And of course, not to enter any Sumic branded elevators at all costs. You can recognize Sumic elevators by the logo embedded on the side wall. If you do spot one or suspect so, please report it to us as soon as possible. Thank you.
If you're reading this document, you probably already know about the danger. I just wanted the header to serve as a reminder in case you forgot. I simply cannot stress this enough. Do not take risks with the elevators. The reason I am writing this document is so that all you journalists get off our backs and let us investigate. This is a summary of all we know so far, much of what you've already heard of in the news. We are not hiding any relevant information from the press or the public. The department will not be taking any questions or interviews regarding the case until further notice. Timeline: June 9th, 2017. On the afternoon of June 9th, 14-year-old Jennifer Hortworth went to visit a classmate, Mike Terrence, at his new apartment at 21st Avenue. The apartment building is new and equipped with CCTV cameras as well as a recently installed Sumic branded elevator. Mike noticed Jen from his porch and waved to her. She waved back and entered the building lobby. CCTV footage last captured her going inside the elevator shaft. That evening, Jennifer's parents called Mike asking for their daughter's whereabouts. After learning that she had not arrived at Mike's home, the parents notified the police at 9:32 p.m. Police promised to investigate but did not have any reason to regard her disappearance as suspicious. It was when only she didn't arrive the next day at school the police began to investigate more thoroughly. There was no CCTV footage of Jennifer leaving the apartment complex, and therefore police concluded that one of the residents had something to do with the disappearance. However, all residents of the complex complied to a warrantless house search, and no trace of Jennifer was found. Given the circumstances of her disappearance, Jennifer is most likely the first victim of the Sumic elevators. July 24th, 2017. The disappearance of 27-year-old Heather Hayes is the first confirmed victim of the Sumic elevators. Heather worked as a data analyzer for well-known cable company Simtax at their headquarters in 53rd Lake Street. The building has extensive CCTV coverage, including inside the elevator. At 12:17 p.m., Heather entered the Sumic branded elevator, assumingly to go outside for a smoke. She is not seen again. When she does not come home that night, her husband calls the police. Police, through CCTV footage and witnesses, learned that Heather had never left the building. Her disappearance is caught on the elevator's CCTV. Many of you have already seen the now public footage. Heather enters the elevator and presses the button to the lobby. She appears to be browsing her phone when the CCTV suddenly goes black for several frames. When it turns back on Heather, she is missing. Police dismiss this as a technical bug. A repairman is sent to fix the CCTV problems. July 25th, 2017. Seeking further information, fellow NYPD officer John Shaffey returns to the Simtax headquarters to interview work colleagues about Heather's disappearance. At 10:54 a.m., after he is done questioning, he takes the elevator back down and is never seen again. After not responding to several radio call-ins, I go myself to investigate. The CCTV footage resembled that of Heather's disappearance. It was at that point we begun to suspect foul play. We searched the elevator shaft for anything suspicious, but found nothing. The security man that was in charge of watching the CCTV camera was taken to the police station, but was later released due to lack of evidence. August 12, 2017. Christian Carl, a 42-year-old private plumber from Maine, was last spotted exiting a customer's apartment. The customer had called in for Christian to fix the sink. After doing so, the customer accompanied Christian to the elevator at approximately 3:30 p.m. When Christian didn't come home, by the next morning, his wife alerted the police. Upon arriving, police noticed that his service car was still parked outside the apartment. Police began noticing striking similarities to the other disappearances. August 17, 2017. This is the most prolific disappearance of all, and has been extensively covered on the media. 7 employees, Cheryl Marsh, Marcus Wheeler, Jana Carroll, Myrtle Klein, Louise McCormick, Willis Costello, and Joanne Allen, working at the Plaza skyscraper, disappeared after taking the Sumic elevator to the lobby at 6:33 p.m. The elevator stopped at floors 6, 5, and 3 to pick up employees. The disappearance is suspected to be between the 3rd and 1st floor. Theories and investigation. Following the August 12th disappearance, we set up a joint task force to investigate the elevator disappearances as related. Sadly, none of the crime scenes left any forensic evidence that we can connect. However, we did notice that all the disappearances all happened in New York, in a Sumic branded elevator, and that all elevators had been installed or repaired recently. Our first line of investigation was to question the manufacturers of the elevators. However, the lack of information has left us even more baffled. When we interviewed the contractors who hired the company, they all claimed the Sumic elevator representatives had reached out to them by phone or in person. The company marketed itself as a newly formed startup, claiming to transform the way elevators worked. They provided a construction license and offered a very low price, and so the contractors agreed. When we tried calling the company back, the line was dead. We also found no records of the company ever being registered. We could not even identify the men who installed the elevators. Therefore, we ask that anyone who recognizes them from the CCTV footage or the eyewitness sketches report to us immediately. It is important to note that our investigation is still very recent, and we are yet to find out more information. Our main theory is that the disappearances are the work of a very calculated group of killers. However hard it is to believe, it may be possible that the group had managed to somehow hide in the shaft and then somehow attack and dispose of the victims. It may not seem plausible, but it seems reasonable enough given the circumstances. Our second theory is that the victims willfully climbed out into the elevator shaft, possibly aided by others. The motive is yet unknown, but they could have arranged for their disappearance. It is unlikely, however, as the majority of the victims led a happy and loved life, with no reason to arrange such drastic measures. It is, of course, possible that the victims were lured out of the shaft by gunpoint and then somehow removed and disposed of. Since the case has garnered media attention, we have received hundreds of tips and theories regarding the missing people. We will explore every line of inquiry possible, and we ask that if you have any information to please call our special hotline. Thank you for your cooperation. Detective Dave Cox, NYPD. Part 2. It has been a month since I last shared information about the case to the public. A lot has changed since. The FBI displayed great interest in the elevators and took over the case not long after I released the document. Officially, it's in their hands now. I'm supposed to be off the case, but that doesn't stop me from investigating. I think the greatest flaw with our investigation was that we didn't think outside the box. We always try to reason the disappearances as something within the realm of physical possibility. The idea that these people were forcibly kidnapped or that they somehow disappeared themselves was the only possible way to explain it. It is extremely unlikely and requires an insane amount of luck, but theoretically, it is possible. With such improbability, it may just be that what happened in the elevators is beyond our current understanding of what is possible. Supposing, for example, the elevators contain some kind of transporter or machine that evaporates its victims within a millisecond. It may sound crazy, but it seems much more logical than the theories we currently have. I mean, how much do we really know about humanity's technological capability? Governments and corporations could certainly be hiding secret advanced technology from the public, like the Manhattan Project was during World War II. We must agree that it at least makes sense that some kind of unknown technology was involved in those disappearances. The greatest flaw with this theory, however, is the lack of evidence we found inside the elevators. I admit we didn't search thoroughly, but it is to be expected that we would find some kind of unwelcome technology installed in the shafts, unless we are assuming that it was somehow dismantled after the disappearance. And that's when it struck me. Supposing, for example, that there was indeed a man inside the shaft. He could have carried or dismantled the technology that was responsible for the disappearances. With that in mind, I decided to review the CCTV footage of before and after the disappearances. It took me a while, but I finally found a breakthrough in the case. In the incidents of Heather Hayers, Jennifer Hortworth, and the Plaza disappearances, where CCTV footage was available, the same man appears to enter the building 3 days before the disappearances. The man is white, wears a black suit with a tie. He is bald and has sunglasses on. He seems fairly tall and physically strong. In all cases, he is carrying a large suitcase. He walks nonchalantly and appears to be calm. The elevator's CCTV seems to have momentarily blacked out when he enters the elevators in Heather's building. He may have during that time somehow climbed into the shaft. In the cases without CCTV footage inside the elevator, it must have been even easier for him. He may have hid inside the elevator shaft for days, waiting for the right time to strike. In the case of Jennifer Hortworth, he seems to wait 2 days after the disappearance before emerging outside. In the case of Heather and the Plaza disappearance, there is no CCTV footage of him ever going back outside. I assume that he may have left via the underground level where the car park is located in both buildings in order not to attract suspicion. My next line of investigation was to see if he did indeed exit the building via the parking lot. It took me several sleepless nights, but I run the license plate of every single car leaving the building in the hours following the disappearance. The only car that cross-matched in both buildings was an old 2006 gray Toyota Corolla. Its license plate was useless, however. It was a fake. I could also only spot one person in the car, meaning that if he had taken the victims, it was not in the Toyota. The findings have left me with more questions than answers. I'm going to continue to investigate this and will keep you updated. With regards, Detective Dave Cox. The story sure had its ups and downs, but the events are terrifying on so many levels. From now on, everyone should take steps to avoid elevators, so they don't get shafted like the people who disappeared. Our next story comes to us from return author Roozea, who tells the story of the afterlife in A Mix-Up at Heaven's Gate. And don't forget, if you are enjoying tonight's video and would like to see more like it, show your support for the channel by pressing the like and subscribe.
Mix-Up at Heaven's Gate by Reddit user Roozea. You know how people say that you won't feel anything when you die? There's no pain? That's bullshit. It burned through me like a raging fire for hours after the crash, but I knew that I had died on impact. Besides the steering wheel, the last thing that ran through my mind was the grim realization that Tom was right. I should have slowed the fuck down, as he so eloquently put it. Tom had been my best friend since primary school. Tall, athletic, handsome, smart, charming. He was everything that I wanted to be. Of course, I shouldn't begrudge him for what he was born with, but I'd be lying if I said that being his friend was easy. He was a natural at everything he tried, beating me at everything, and I had the biggest crush on his perfect girlfriend Samantha. So it had been a huge deal to me when I passed my driving test before him, hence the showing off. So there I was, slumped over in the driver's seat as a result of my own stupidity, the pain finally beginning to ebb away. Sweet release came in the form of nothingness as my spirit slowly abandoned the broken vessel. Fading, fading, gone. And for the longest time, there was only darkness. And then there was a light. I gazed through the surrounding white fog in astonishment. A line sprawled out ahead leading to what looked like a check-in desk. Looking back, I saw Tom a few places back. He shook his head at me in a way that clearly said, "I'm not talking to you." Totally understandable, to be honest. I did get him killed after all. "Heaven!" a loud voice would periodically declare, before the person at the front of the line was directed to a glowing blue circle burned into the fluffy white ground. With a push of a button from the man at the desk, they would vanish into a plume of blue smoke. Not once did he shout, "Hell!" "Next!" he boomed in a bored voice as I hit the front of the line. A golden plaque on the polished wooden desk read, "Mr. Simmons." Behind it sat a balding man in his mid to late 50s, looking down at a clipboard. Says here you died in a car accident along with a friend?" I nodded numbly. "Yes, sir. Could you?" I was interrupted by a small man pushing by, apologizing profusely. When he reached the desk, he whispered something in Mr. Simmons' ear, whose tired eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I see. No need for that. I'll deal with it. Thank you, Winston." The small man bowed and hurried away. "Excuse me, sir," I said hesitantly. "But where are we exactly?"
Can't you read, boy?
He pointed at a sign suspended above him that read, Heaven's Gate. In answer to an unspoken follow-up question, he continued,
We send so few people to hell that there's no point including it in the name. Plus, Heaven's Gate has a much better ring to it than Heaven and Hell's Gate, wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir. So what happens to us?
Well, now that is the question, isn't it? Winston just informed me that one of you survived the crash, and it is only here by mistake. It's extremely rare that something like this happens, usually involving a lot of paperwork and someone in the surveillance department losing their job. But as it's very nearly the end of my shift, I really don't have time for all that. So, just give me your name, and I'll have this sorted in a jiffy.
I looked back at Tom, eyeing me over the shoulders of the people in front. He must have survived. There's no way I could have. With a heavy sigh, I turned back to the man and asked, "What happens to the other?" He glanced down at the clipboard and shifted uncomfortably.
Well, they will be spending their eternity in...
He cleared his throat a little, as if the last words had gotten stuck in his throat.
hell.
He finished meekly. It hit me like a ton of bricks. What on earth had I done to deserve that? Sure, I was prone to some less than savory thoughts every now and then, but who wasn't, right? It's not like I ever would have acted on them. Reluctantly, I gave him my name. Mr. Simmons sighed solemnly.
I'm sorry, kid, but hell really isn't as bad as they say on Earth, you know. Think of it as an indefinite stay at a rundown hotel, with just a smidge of torch every now and then.
His smile vanished when he saw the look on my face.
I'll let you say goodbye to your friend. When you're done, stand on the second circle on the left, and then tell him to stand on the next one over. I'll buzz you both through.
After pulling Tom from the line, I led him over to our respective circles, whilst withstanding his onslaught of questioning. When he was in position, I held up a hand to silence him. Apparently there's been a mistake, I explained. You survived the crash, so they're sending you back to your body. His face lit up at the news. He started babbling about the people he couldn't wait to see and the things he couldn't wait to do. But his excitement quickly faltered. Wait, you said I survived? What about you? I forced a smile. Oh, I'm dead as a donut. Sucks, right? His demeanor flicked to one of outrage. Before I could say anything, I decided to lie. Don't worry. Simmons said I'm going to heaven. It won't be so bad, and there's nothing we can do about it anyway. My buddy got completely messed up in the crash. I'll meet you in heaven whenever you really do die. Deal? Eyes beginning to brim with tears, he nodded sadly in agreement. I gave Mr. Simmons a signal to say we were ready, and with the push of a button, we were plunged into darkness once again. Heat and pain were the first to greet me, smoke invading my nostrils as I gasped my first breath. Squinting through the hazy air, I noticed a figure to my right. A corpse. My corpse. A sight of fire dancing across the car's interior spurred me into action. I shouldered open the passenger door and spilled out onto the road. After stumbling a short distance clear of the wreckage, I fell to my knees and drank in the fresh air. I couldn't believe I'd gone through with it. Telling Mr. Simmons that my name was Tom had been a stroke of brilliance. I had to congratulate myself on that. So many things could have gone wrong. I mean, the fact that Simmons went purely on name is still hilarious to me. Getting used to Tom's body was a little tricky at first, but I got the hang of it pretty fast. His memories are now mine along with everything else, so continuing his life has been a walk in the park. The hardest part was attending my own funeral a few weeks back. I'll never forget my parents' faces as they watched my coffin lowered into the dirt, tears streaming down their cheeks. It was upsetting for me too, but I felt much better after a quick glance down at Samantha tucked lovely under my arm. So, I've doomed my best friend to an eternity of hell so that I could steal his life. How do I feel about that now? Well, pretty damn good to tell you the truth. I've been having a blast. Guess I'm not worthy of heaven after all. Who knows? Maybe I'll find a way to trick them again when my second death comes along.
Well, I'll be damned. That was one hell of a story. I wonder if Mr. Simmons will discover his mistake, or will the main character get to keep his new angelic life? I guess we'll need to stay tuned in with Roozea to see if we find out more.